Welcome to Vyšehrad, one of the oldest historical sites in Prague. It's possible, actually, on this site, on a hill overlooking the Vltavia River, or Vltava, depending on who you ask, river, this was actually possibly the first settlement that later became Prague, so 1,000+ years ago. There are buildings here that are the oldest in Prague, dating from about 1000 AD. There's a basilica, there's numerous castle wall type things. There's a cemetery that features some of the most distinguished figures in Czech history and Bohemian history. Vyšehrad literally means upper castle. It is sitting, as you can see, on a hill overlooking the river. Most of Prague is that way. But yeah, it's sort of a little thing that most probably Western tourists never get to see because it's kind of away from the rest of the downtown area. It's in a sort of, but it's very close to my flat, which is very convenient. So we're going to do some more little looking around on Vyšehrad and see what we see. But it's massive complex. Like I said, basilicas, castle fortifications, there's a working preschool, there's a restaurant, there's cemetery, there's tons of just parks and areas to walk around. So I won't be able to show you all of it, but I hope you get a sense of what it's like to visit Prague.
This is the Basilica of St. Peter and Paul. There has been a Basilica of St. Peter and Paul on this spot off and on for about 1,000 years. This iteration was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and is therefore in this neo-Gothic style. The twin spires are visible for miles around because it's quite high and it's on a hill. I poked my head inside, but there is an admission charge to fully explore, so I'll have to come back someday when I have, like a job. But it was really quite lovely, and the carry-on kept playing through much of my visit around the area, as you will hear shortly. This is the grave of Antonin Dvorak, the greatest Czech composer. Smetana is also buried here, his immediate forebearer, as are any number of other Czech and Bohemian luminaries, many of whom, unfortunately, I'm not as familiar with as I would like to be. But Karel Čapek, who invented the word robot, is also buried here. So it's quite a prestigious place to be buried. This is the view looking south along the Vltavia River. It's easy to see why, even dating 3,000 years ago or so, late Bronze Age, Copper Age people would have moved here and held this as a high ground and a fortress. And here you can see I'm standing on like the fortifications on the ramparts of the entire complex, looking down south towards modern Prague and towards the river, which would have looked much the same some 2,000 years ago when people first decided to start building fortifications here. There's a great small museum in the cellars that actually shows the history of the place. This is St. Martin's Rotunda, one of perhaps the oldest building in Prague. There's some debate. It's from about 1070. It is a small church. And it's exactly as big around as you think it is. There's nothing hidden. And it's sort of nestled in this entire area. There are no castles at Vyšehrad Castle. Any sort of actual buildings like that have long since gone. But there are many outbuildings like this left. Here you can see there's a cannonball on the side of the rotunda from a battle in the 1700s. Speaking of which, this gate, the Leopold Gate, is from the 1600s. It was made in an attempt to improve the fortifications, which, as you can see, are quite high, and the hill is already quite high. Like, we're already at the top of the hill looking at this, and then the hill even goes further up. So they kept adding and changing fortifications well into the early 1800s.
This is the Nova Brana, or the brick gate, the new gate, technically, built in the 1840s. Part of the massive ramparts of Vyšehrad Fortress and Castle Complex. It's probably the newest part of the ramparts, although they have redone many, many times over the years. But this was probably the last time someone thought they needed to add a gate for security reasons.